Good morning, and welcome back to Doing It Live with Doomlink. We are here in The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, and on the subject of time, it's story time. Because yesterday evening, I became acquainted with a small incident pertaining to the previous livestream. So, Twitch decided to flag, or at the very least mute a section of my previous livestream because it detected that I was using copyrighted music. Now I know what you're thinking. Very clearly the only music that was playing in that video was OST, game soundtrack. So honestly, Link, if you could stop moaning, that would be excellent. I feel as if you're interrupting my monologue needlessly. You would be right in saying that all that played in the previous video was soundtrack music, but it technically wasn't the soundtrack music itself that was flagged as copyright. What happened was, a 3-minute section of my previous livestream was muted because Twitch deemed that an entire song by some random artist whom I couldn't find his song on YouTube, but I was able to find his SoundCloud, which had 0 followers, and the song in question, which I'm not going to say the name of, used as a sample the Lost Woods theme. And because that song used the largely unchanged, unedited, from his part, Lost Woods theme, my frickin' livestream got flagged for that. Again, to be very, very clear, I did not use his song. It was simply because that particular song, that particular copyrighted song, which presumably barely anyone has listened to, uses the game soundtrack from Ocarina of Time, that somehow Twitch managed to pick it up as me having played it on my livestream, which is the height of absurdity, to be clear. I mean, the idea that that can even happen is almost unbelievable, except for the fact that I can believe it. What's really frustrating, and it clearly, once I actually contested it, they didn't need to do an investigation of any kind. My, what's the word? It's not contest, there's a word that they use, it's, Anyway, basically when I argued against it, we'll say, it gives you an option to say the basis upon which you take issue with the finding by Twitch, and I selected, well, this music does not appear in this livestream. And yeah, once I had actually submitted my argument against it, it was just immediately unmuted, that was it. But you see, in the process, you have to put in your all of your personal details, or at the very least your full name, your residential address, etc. And it also says that, you'll be considered to be committing perjury if this is in any way made in bad faith. So, yeah, that's lovely, isn't it? Here we go. Gold Sculpture. I really do need to be keeping track of these, because I do want to collect 30 tokens, as I mentioned in one of the previous live streams. But yeah, that's story time. Basically story time over. There's not much more to be said than that. But it just came across as absolutely ridiculous, because what about all the people who do have a completely spurious claim? Well, I suppose if I say it's spurious, it almost suggests that it's someone intentionally doing it. I don't think that's what happened. I think it's Twitch having a very embarrassing hiccup at my expense. But of course, there are people who would see legal phrasing where you're under penalty of perjury in the event of blah blah blah, and that would actually stop them from putting the argument through. I wish, do you know when you have a mental blank on a word, like a fairly common word, and that's what it is, and it's really muddying up your explanation. I keep saying things like argument or disagree, or what is the word? It is appeal. So appeal, precisely because of how legally it's worded, and it's not extreme, it's not like reading a legal document, but it's enough to deter people from appealing, and, you know, of course I was more than comfortable in doing it because I was able to see what was going on, but I just think of all the people who wouldn't know what's going on, and may actually think they did something wrong, but in actual fact it was just Twitch completely shitting the bed. Very disappointing, but hopefully it doesn't keep happening. I was deathly concerned that somehow the soundtrack of the game had some sort of grey copyright enforcement going on with it. Grey in the sense that only a 3-minute section of my stream was muted, even though I was playing the Lost Woods theme for quite some time. Or rather, that it was playing in the game for quite some time. So I thought, oh god, what is this really inconsistent enforcement of the copyright? And also, why would it be enforced? It's video game music in Ocarina of Time. So, yeah, once I had realized what song was actually implicated here, I realized, in turn, that the entire thing was bogus. But, yeah, it was confusing and unnecessarily time-consuming. Well, not hugely time-consuming, but, yeah, the entire episode was foolish. Didn't make much sense. Alright. So we are making our way through Dodongo's Cavern. At the end of the previous VOD, which is part something, I don't really know, it's probably part 6, we went through, I'm not going to say the first half, but we went to the right, and then once we returned to the same room, the main room, we were then able to go to the left side, and that's where we are progressing now. Got Link with his giant shield, of course, because we don't want the Deku shield equipped. This room is a good example as to why. These are fire keys. We certainly don't want to have our Deku shield burnt by them. It wouldn't be the absolute end of the world, because you could just buy another Deku shield, but it is 40 rupees, and I don't really feel the need to go and buy another Deku shield. I did somewhat criticize at the beginning of part 4 the fact that they decided to have you spawn at the Kokiri Forest rather than where you left off, despite the fact that this is a modern remake. But there are definitely uses to spawning at Kokiri Forest. Uses that I'm surprised they recognized enough to retain that feature. But there you go. It just goes to show that even if they hadn't decided that that was useful, even if they didn't go through that decision-making process, it usually is safer to change less rather than more when it comes to returning to an old game. Particularly if it was a very successful game. You don't really want to mess with the recipe. You don't want to potentially spoil the quality of the much-loved video game. I don't really know why I'm even bothering to snipe them there, because they'll just respawn when I return to this room later. Now that I'm in this dungeon, lovely graphics, of course. It's just a reminder of what I'm experiencing here. It is a fully remade version of the game, but with high-resolution textures, and indeed new models that are a bit nicer. As I said, it's not really going to replace the experience of the original, but it is nice to give this one a try. Open this chest. I don't think there's much more we need to do in this room from here. By the way, if you haven't managed to acquire the upgraded wallet by the time you reach this dungeon, you will be rather frustrated to receive rupees that you cannot actually add to your wallet. Again, sort of struggling to walk in a straight direction, but that's just my fault, I guess. I thought I heard the sound of a skulltula. Maybe not. Dynaflows. Come on. Alright, this is our second confrontation with the Lizalfos. I'll just follow the guy. The original guy. He's really being annoying, actually. Alright, fine. I'll fight the second one then. That's probably how they want you to do it. Do you think that actually made contact with him? I saw blue blood drawn, but I didn't actually see him glow red to indicate that I had made contact. He must have had a momentary invincibility. Come on. Indeed, we wouldn't want red blood to be drawn. That would be much too violent. They were always a little bit revisionist with that. So in earlier versions of the game, they would have red blood, and then it would change to like blue and green, things like that. But that's alright. It's a kid's game, I suppose. Maybe parent advocacy groups complained. My child should not be exposed to human blood of any kind. Of course, that's an entire story of video gaming and culture. You know, the absolute moral outrage of the 90s and 2000s of violent video games. Which I, you know, don't completely dismiss. I think, you know, if I had been a parent at that time, I probably would have been on the more conservative side of, you know, letting my child play video games, but that ship really has sailed now, hasn't it? Think of the popularity of games like Grand Theft Auto. That was a pretty outrageous game when it was a new concept. Outrageous in a lot of ways. And it makes me wonder if we should treat things like Grand Theft Auto as an unrestrained depiction of reality, or instead a sort of embellished, almost grotesque, and what's the word I'm looking for? Well, anyway, it could be embellished, and indeed, it's probably not wholly accurate. But anyway. I don't know if we want to bomb that or not. I suspect that we'll have to wait until we've got actual bombs on hand. If you haven't managed to work it out, that is going to be the dungeon item. Gratuitous was the word I was thinking of. Perhaps we should instead treat Grand Theft Auto as something gratuitous. But rather than realistic, you know, it would probably be a mistake to say that it's just an unrestrained depiction of reality. With that switch on, the moving platform goes higher. Thank you, Navi. Jesus. Now you can quickly reach the second floor. Well, what does this say? Hold on. No. Why on earth would I want to climb it? Giant dead Dodongo. When it sees red, a new way to go will be open. A new way to go. Really? That was... I suspect they're trying to keep it as simple as possible for children, but my god. A new way to go. I suspect I'm supposed to have bombs by this point, which is a little concerning. Did I miss my opportunity to get a bomb bag? Or did I get bombs and I just completely missed it? That would be incredible if so. Yeah, I did get bombs. I was just so engrossed in my own conversation that I Not only did I not reference it, I didn't even realize it when I received bombs. That's... well, it takes a certain amount of talent to be that disconnected from the game you're playing. Just goes to show how, subconsciously, I am going through this dungeon. It's all very familiar. Can I nudge that over? Over? Well, fortunately we do have this thing to climb. Hold on, let me dispose of you. Okay. You gonna give me anything? No. Apparently the explosion of the Beamos as it dies can hurt you. That's new information. I had no idea. But anyway. Yes, fortunately I was able to get straight back to where I was despite my very fumbled attempt at bombing this eye. That is probably the worst fumbling I've ever had of bombing that eye. Anyway. And as you can see, the door opens. Or rather, the mouth of the giant Dodongo head opens. Now, while we're back in this main room and while I'm thinking of it, we should go and access a gold sculpture. I think this will then, therefore, be our third gold sculpture. We managed to get the one behind that wall by having the Dynaflows actually die in front of the wall, thus breaking it with their explosion. They have a very explosive way of dying. Okay. Very smoothly evading fall damage here. I suppose I may as well bomb this. Once you do get bombs, it is difficult to resist the temptation to just bomb everything in sight. But it's good to be thorough when going through a dungeon. I suspect that this is a compass. I shouldn't even use... oh no, it's a map. Okay. Well, this was something that I was able to access right from the start, I think. Yeah, there's a bomb flower right here. I should probably use bomb flowers when they are available, so that I'm not wasting my resources. Alright. So again, to make it clear, the reason why I'm continuing in this direction rather than going through the Dodongo's mouth is because there is a gold sculpture for me to collect over here. I think there's also a piece of heart in this dungeon, which I've sort of forgotten about. Okay, so what we need to do... how do we reverse this? How do we make this go back up? I've got a flying creature on my microphone. Unless, of course, we want it to go... Sorry, having a bit of a mental blank as to how to make this work. Let me just kill you. Because we need the staircase to go up. And we need to be standing here when it does so. So maybe I'll, I just don't know how it's going to go up by... detonating those bombs, because the whole idea of it was that the bombs would take out a layer, and then the whole thing would fall down. Sorry, I've got... you know when you've got a very small... flying creature distracting you? Well, that's... very much what's happening right now. Of course, bombing this again is not going to send it back up. I'll do it for good measure, but it's definitely not what we want. I just don't really remember how it goes back up. Would I need to reset the dungeon for that? I don't think I needed to reset the dungeon in the past, though, so... as in, you know, when I last did this. And when I've done it on previous occasions, I've got no idea. Maybe I'll, double-check the guide. Just the, you know, gold sculpture location guide. It might give me a hint as to how to do that. So... In the room with the giant staircase, climb up to the very top and walk around to the south part of the... Oh, no, that's not the one. Oh my god. How do you get to that one? It's not even explained. Oh, maybe you need to... Do you return to Dodongo's cavern? Yes, you do. You need the boomerang or the hookshot. I see. I'm misremembering. We can't actually reach that right now. You need to have something that acquires the token from a distance, or... Well, what does it actually do? Let's read what it says. So, the staircase must not be lowered. Must enter the room from the floor 2 door. So you ride the tall pillar. What I suspect is that the dungeon has to reset. So I was right in what I said before. I just had a false memory of not requiring that. But apparently you do need the boomerang or the hookshot. So, that's none of our business at this time. Not at this stage. Beverage today, by the way, is Bundaberg Extra Smooth Rum. Can't say I've ever had it before. I just saw that it was on special and thought, well, fuck me, I may as well try some Bundaberg rum. There's quite a story about Bundaberg rum in Australia, relating to rum rage. So, rum rage was directly attributed to Bundaberg rum to the extent where it got banned from a number of pubs in Australia. And by a number of, I mean a very large number. It may have been statewide, I think in Queensland. Maybe. But it was a bit of a thing. Definitely, probably unfair, probably almost ridiculous and superstitious. The idea that a particular rum will make you violent, but I don't know. I do think that when drunk, the beverage that you consumed will have an effect on the state and nature of your drunkenness. I do believe that. You know, it's chemical. It's a sort of it's the way the brain works. But as far as a particular type of rum, I don't know if I would believe that. But superstitious or otherwise, there was at least some sort of statewide banning of it. But here it is. I'll try not to suddenly become enraged, ladies and gentlemen. I might just fly off the wheel. Go. Is that fly off the hook? I don't remember the phrase. Anyway. Come on. Let's be a little more methodical and gentle. There we go. So I think... Well, I don't really know for sure what that does. I think we have to go there. I don't think there's a way forward except for... Oh no, there is another way forward. We just go up through here. I thought I would just demonstrate it at least. Demonstrate that I haven't completely misunderstood what I'm doing and where I can go. You see, I can head out that way, but do I want to, is the question. How about we go through here? I think that, yeah, I had a feeling this is where the other gold sculpture was. So this will be our third gold sculpture. But you seem to be able to collect a total of 4 in this dungeon. How did I hit you before? Well, I'm just going to bomb you, okay? Nothing personal. Ended up being a sort of 2 birds with 1 stone scenario. Which was very useful. Okay, there's another gold sculpture token. Now, I am a little curious as to how many we're holding. We now have 20. Only 10 more to go, which will be quite easy to get. Getting another 10 will not be a very arduous process. goodness sake. It may be worth mentioning that I think I've taken my live audience by surprise. I don't think many people have tuned in, but that's alright. It's a Let's Play. It does, it always contributes something of worth to have people join in, but it's not required. I can definitely talk underwater. I think I've got it set to... Oh, no. Set it to the wrong thing. There we go. I'm glad I didn't accidentally use the fairy. I thought I'd set it to... So basically, your touch buttons on the bottom screen, I have it set to my D-pad, like different directions on my D-pad. I thought I'd set it to the right direction, but I'd actually set it to the left. I guess if I look at it logically, it makes sense as to why that's happened. I also, by the way, have 1 1/4 hearts. So I probably should address that. Got some more bombs. So the reason why we went all the way around there was so that we could reach this block and then push it in this hole. Because that is a blue switch. When you encounter a blue switch, it means it must be held down. You can't just step on it. I sense a fire keys. Did you see that? He was well out of my range. I mean, just being in my presence apparently was enough for me to be burnt. And then for some reason, the second keys, despite actually making physical contact with me, did not burn me. Okay. Consistency, not important when it comes to video game design. You've heard it here first. If anyone knows how to do it, it's Nintendo, right? Although, I think it was a different company on the behalf of Nintendo who did this remaster. This was not a completely in-house remaster of the game. And I can sort of imagine that. I can imagine the Nintendo game designers not wanting to return to a game they've done before. So they just, I guess we could say, outsource the labor. What the hell did I just pick up? Because I feel like that was the entire reason why I've come all this way. I really should be more clued in. What did I pick up? What was that? Wait, am I going the right way now? Yes. Sorry, it just looked like this was... Oh, this is a... Sorry, I'm so unfamiliar with this room, I guess because of the new textures that I didn't even know where we were. This is actually how you get to the boss. There is no boss key in this dungeon. You bomb the floor, and then you just drop in. Now, I have 1 3/4 hearts. 1 3/4 hearts, is that a good way to say it? Do you still pluralize it at that point? I guess so. But, it never sounds right. I do have a fairy on hand, so if I do die, I think we'll be alright. In fact, I'm certain we'll be alright. I don't know if I'm going crazy, but it seemed as if Link was not actually looking at King Dodongo there. He seemed distracted. He looked like he was looking somewhere else. Alright, I'll just do, you know, jump attacks. You can use bomb flowers for this boss fight, by the way. The reason why they're provided, no doubt, is to avoid a scenario where the player literally runs out of what they need. They could have done a thing like, you know, Godin in Wind Waker where he does a big snot rocket and then arrows come out. But that's alright. Speaking of which, I did say that I was playing Wind Waker in my own time. I haven't reached Godin yet. I've just begun the Tower of the Gods. Technically haven't ventured in yet, but I have set all of my pearls. I do love Wind Waker. I have a very, very deep affection for that game. And I suspect it will be a strange companion throughout my life. You know, when you keep returning to the same video games, just at different stages of your life. That's what the Zelda series is for me, and I guess Wind Waker will very much be like that. It's pretty fascinating, but yeah. I indeed did get a heart container, and I also did not need a fairy in the end, which is good news. I think we're ready to go. I have a Goron Ruby to collect. You may have also noticed there that the, sorry, I'm having a hair moment. But you may have noticed there that the Goron bracelet, is that what it's called? See how visible it is there? It looks very separate to Link. It looked a bit more like a tattoo, not actually like a tattoo, but do you know what I mean? It didn't have a sort of bracelet look to it in the original version. Probably just due to graphical limitations. Am I happy with my hair now? Not really. It's as good as it's going to be. What a wild adventure, says the guy who wasn't even involved in said adventure. It will make an incredible story. I can't believe that the Dodongos suddenly appeared in such great numbers, and that big rock blocking the cave. Why do you still look so dissatisfied? He said, give me the spiritual stone, only then will I open the cave for you. You, on the other hand, risk your life for us. Oh, there you go. There's the big smile. I actually would prefer if you went back to frowning. That almost looks like an extreme version of the cat grin. You know, the one that's depicted with the number 3. How's about... See, that always trips me up. I always go to say what he says here. This is going back for what it feels like my whole Let's Playing career. And I go to say it and I realize there's something very wrong with this sentence, and then I completely clam up and I'm like, what am I looking at? How's about you and I become sworn brothers? You'd think I'd get used to it by now. No, there's no big ceremony involved. Just take this as a token of our friendship. I think just one of this guy's arms is the same size as Link. Of course, it is never explained why in Zelda any item is received not by hand but by levitating above us. You could, of course, make an argument for it when it comes to the Kokiri Emerald, Goron Ruby, Zora Sapphire, because they're magical. But what about all these other things? How is he holding them above his head? How is this possible? I require a lore-related explanation. You should go see the Great Fairy. I will see her. There are 2 Great Fairies that we have access to now, by the way. We have the one at the top of Death Mountain. That's not the way we want to go. Go on, Link. Up you go. That always was a strange scene. I understand why they do that, though. It's because he's got the Goron Ruby that they all want to eat. What I'd encourage them to do is to go back to eating their rocks. You know, the ones that apparently they had a shortage of, which now somehow has been alleviated. Hello, Mad Duck. But yeah, seriously. That whole idea of them having a rock shortage, it's a good example of you needing to not take the game seriously, because as soon as you take the game seriously, that is about as stupid as it gets. Now, that jump there was always a little bit weird in the original version. You sort of had to do a roll and jump, otherwise you'd slide straight off the edge. I never understood that. There's also a cow down there. I don't think there's any reason to go down there. I suppose I can check it out. How about we check it out? But yes, as I was saying, there are 2 Great Fairies that we can access. We can access the one on top of Death Mountain, who will give us... we're at max rupees, by the way. can't really benefit from any of that. So the fairy on top of Death Mountain will give us a magic bar, and there is also a fairy fountain that we can now access with bombs in the Hyrule Castle, which will give us Din's Fire. Quite important that you get that. Okay, now we're going to make use of our shield. At a certain point, the rocks will stop dropping on Link for a short moment, and then we can roll forward a bit. And then we go back to being a tortoise. I have to say that the shaking in this version of the game is a bit nauseating. I don't know about any of you watching that, but that was going a bit too far, in my opinion. And as for the Japanese, they'll start freaking out, because they'll be getting earthquake flashbacks. We cannot have any references to earthquake. No, of course, they're not like that at all. But it does make for a mildly funny joke. Emphasis on the word mildly. And there's a Sheikah Stone. One of the original ones, as opposed to these giant ones that are dispersed, or interspersed throughout the world. Oh, come on. I'm always glad to see a bomb go closer to him, but that's not really what I was looking to do. Now, he doesn't try to talk to you here. He just gives you the opportunity to fly down to Kakariko Village, which is needed if you're not doing the weird glitch to get the heart piece on top of the house. Wait, no, I think you do it to get the Song of Storms, don't you? We'll take Cape Horror down. Okay, we need the Zelda's Lullaby, which I've forgotten how to play. Okay, it's that. Let's try that again. How did I... Oh, is it R? Do I start with R? I could just bomb the fountain. Such is my impatience. I really do fucking hate this. I'll just use my cheat sheet. XAY, XAY. This is probably the main reason, maybe not the main reason, but one of the main reasons as to why this will not become my definitive Ocarina of Time experience. This garbage of having to press these different buttons, instead of having directional buttons and A to play the music. Welcome, Link, I'm the Great Fairy of Power. I'm going to grant you a sword technique. Receive it now. The reason why it's described as a sword technique is because when you don't have things like Din's Fire, Faror's Wisdom, etc. Wait, no, that doesn't sound right. Faror's Wind, there you go, and Nehru's Love. The reason why I knew Faror's Wisdom was incorrect was because Wisdom instead links to Nehru, not Faror. But anyway, the reason why it's called a sword technique is because the only way you can use your magic bar without those things is to charge your sword. Gives you a stronger spin attack. Why she needs to laugh that way, I really couldn't say. I'd just like to demonstrate that she's been kind enough to give me a magic bar, but not to fill it. I hope she fills it straight away. Come on, come on. Thank you. I really had little doubt that it would be filled, but I just thought it was funny that they didn't fill it straight away. It struck me as mildly entertaining. Alright. Before I speak to you, I'm actually going to venture into the volcano. We can only be here for a short time. It's called the Death Mountain Crater, as you can see. The reason why we're going here is because we've got a gold sculpture. Now, as far as getting the heart piece that's over here, we can't really do it with our number of hearts. We might be able to, Basically, the time that you're given, you are able to see a little timer on the bottom there. That will always be proportional to your number of hearts. It weirdly doesn't take away your hearts as time goes on. They just convert the number of hearts into a time. So as you get new heart containers, you will get a longer time. Hoo hoot! Well, it looks like you've grown up a little from the Great Fairy's power. By the way, I do need to finish this VOD soon. This has been a slightly longer one than normal. But you still don't really look like the hero who will save Hyrule. At least not yet. If you're going back down the mountain, I can lend you a wing. Yeah, lend me a wing. Apparently, Echoes of Wisdom takes place directly after this game. I do not believe that. Not for so much as a moment. That might be the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Mad Duck, I thought that Echoes of Wisdom was meant to be the very first game. Like a prequel to the prequel of the prequels of the prequels. Like, very early. Anyway, it seems I was wrong about this being the... Oh, no, of course not. We get the Song of Storms by doing the Dampe game. Yeah. So, this gives us access to a heart piece, I think. Oh, the first game of the Downfall timeline. You see, this split timeline business, I can't remember the details anymore, but seriously, who cares at this point? The split timeline theory was quite literally a theory, and as far as I'm concerned, and I'm going to hang my hat on this forever, Nintendo decided that it was canon because they hadn't thought up a fucking timeline, and they thought, well, this is convincing enough, let's go with that. They never thought up a timeline, they didn't care. I mean, they obviously had a vague idea of the games being connected, but they certainly didn't have this convoluted split timeline bloody garbage. And of course, I don't mean to minimize the work done by the guy who figured out this split timeline theory. I think he did an excellent job, but God, keeping track of it and actually caring at this stage, I cannot relate. Why does Link look so uncoordinated when he pulls himself up? Let's have a look at that. See how his arms go like that? I want us to both look at that. You and me. My audience and me. Anyway, it's not as bad as I thought. It's just that occasionally this game looks a little over-animated, but it's not a fair criticism, is it? To say a game is over-animated. At least not in this way. I believe that is going to be it for this particular VOD. I will be continuing the live stream. Probably do 2 or 3 parts in total. But that's it for this part. I do thank you all for watching. When we resume, I suspect we'll try to do some things. I think we can get a piece of heart in Lon Lon Ranch, and maybe I'll try and get some gold sculptures as well. I will see you in the next part. Bye bye for now.